when 77 cases were announced was when I was just like, oh my God, like, here we go again. And that's where that anxiety of like, what do I do? Like, what do I do as like a responsible human being of asking people to come to work?
I'm Dani Valent, and this is Dirty Linen, the podcast that takes the issues the hospitality industry finds hard to air in public and shakes them all about. Hannah Green is the owner of Etta Dining in Lygon Street. Now, it's not in Brunswick South and it's not in Brunswick West, but it is in Brunswick East, which means that you are not locked down, but you're proximate to some lockdown suburbs in the north of Melbourne. Etta's been there for 3 years. It's a beautiful restaurant. It's warm, it's very neighbourly, it's built up a very loyal following. Thanks for chatting to Dirty Linen. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show.
It's so nice to be here.
So things just don't stay the same in 2020, do they? They keep changing. The ground keeps shifting.
Literally, I've just walked out of a management meeting of what next week will bring and how the multiple angles that we're going to come at it with what may or may not happen. So, yeah, fun times.
What are some of the variables you guys were discussing?
Well, I mean, we're seeing a massive decrease in bookings again. And I mean, literally, it's so, as lovely as it is that people are calling to say, I'm so sorry, I just don't think it's a time to come in. I mean, the reality of it is that we're losing our customers again. So we're staying open and trying to make sure that we don't go backwards after, 3 pretty tough months already. So how do we kind of bring things to people? And bringing things to people now looks really different because those people are hotspot suburbs. So like our whole option of delivery that we were coming to you. And I mean, yesterday I delivered to a friend who is a customer bordering Brunswick West, and they're fully back in lockdown. And so what does delivery look like again for us now? It's not the same as what it was before. Like I can't send people into hotspot suburbs. So how do we keep going without using things like delivery partners in this time?
That's so tough. And then, I mean, I'm sure that's just passing the perceived danger on as well, isn't it? Which I'm sure would be the next thing that crosses your mind.
100%. I mean, even yesterday when we chatted, like, the other part of this for me is, there's two parts of this. It's like, how do I keep this business going and making sure we don't bleed too much? And how do I keep, like, my team safe? Because, like, that's the other real reality of it. It's like, it's actually in our backyard. It's, primary schools around us are being closed. Like, it's very much here. And that feeling of like, what do I do? Where does my duty of care for the people here extend from being more than just a business that's, needing to survive, like the human element of it? And that's probably the thing that's creating the most anxiety for me personally at the moment, because I know right now we'll get through this, in like the business will get through this, but this round of it anyway. But it's like, how do I ask someone with a newborn baby to keep pushing on, and someone with an autoimmune disease to put themselves on the front line, essentially, and the other side of that is to do it with a smile on their face and tell people not to like come inside for a good time. We're still here. Like, it's exhausting.
Yeah, it sounds, there must be so many thoughts running through your mind at any one time, and so many, I guess, competing priorities and needs, for your business, for yourself, for the people that you're employing, and of course your customers, who I know that you love so many of them like friends. Hannah, tell me about reopening Etta. Just last week, it probably seems about a year ago, but tell me about that journey to reopening and what happened on that Saturday when things changed again.
Well, I mean, we held off on the first round of reopenings. Well, during the lockdown period, we closed for a couple of weeks. We did the big push with delivery before, the government forced us to shut down. We took a few weeks to just have a little bit of downtime. Like what we did in that last week was pretty crazy. In terms of our delivery was great. We did a wedding in a 3-hour turnaround. Like it was just nuts. And then trying to keep the restaurant going at the same time, or doing food boxes, like produce boxes and everything. I was like, we had 4 businesses all at once and we were pretty exhausted. So we took a couple of weeks and collected our thoughts. And then we reopened as like a little providor bakery and wine shop during the day. And we waited out that first round of restrictions lifting to 20 people just to see what was going to happen and whether it was going to spike again. And so we were holding off. And we're planning to reopen with the 50 people on Thursday. I think it was the 24th, the week of the 22nd reopening. So we were reopening on Thursday the 25th, I think it was. And I waited and we finally pulled the trigger on the Friday afternoon of like pulling the shop down and getting really like going for it with reopening. And then the Saturday, and I read something in The Age, I think it was 2:43, and they're like, no, we're still going ahead with next week's restrictions. I'm like, okay, guys, yep, I need to make a decision. We're doing it. Let's go. And then on the Saturday, they said still only 20 people, and we went ahead with it anyway.
What did you feel? How did you feel when that announcement came through?
I mean, to be honest, we're a small restaurant, so it didn't really make too much of an impact on me. It was more in terms of the physical numbers in the space. It was more, oh, here we go again, like that sense of unease. And so we're trying to push forward and get momentum happening in that time that's starting to become unstable again. And like I think we all kind of felt it. We were like, oh, this is kind of the new norm. Like we're starting to get like a little bit of stability back of what the weeks look like, and we weren't really seeing that many more cases coming in over those weeks of lockdown, and it was all kind of like overseas travellers, and you started to feel a bit that sense of security of cool, like awesome, thank you.
Yeah, we were beyond it.
Yeah, and now it's like, oh, yep, there's more. I think yesterday, like when 77 cases were announced, was when I was just like, oh my God, like here we go again. And that's where like that anxiety of like, what do I do? Like, what do I do as like a responsible human being of asking people to come to work? Like that's where, and like my head's still in that, like I'm still feeling uneasy about what to do. And the thing is, like I can tell you the crazy amount of like cleaning and sanitation and everything that we're doing here is like next level, but and you're entering our safe space. So that's the thing. And like the fact that it is so close, it's pretty scary. I mean, in saying that, Brunswick West had 3 cases reported today. So, I mean, it's not a huge amount, but then, Pascoe Vale was like 44 or something today, which is, it's not that far away.
You're trusting your customers to not come if they feel sick, but you don't know and they don't know if they may be positive but feel fine.
Well, and so we, like yesterday, we started temp checking people walking through the door, which is like, you know, something I've built Etta on is give me a warm welcome and make it feel like you're home. And here I am like, sorry, just before you come in, can I just check your temperature? Like it just is so, as much as I'm trying to make the experience the same and like the menu's the same and what we're doing is trying to keep it as fun and jovial. If anything, like the tunes have kind of gone to the next level and they're very very upbeat at the moment, and everyone's walking through a very spacious dining room kind of dancing. But that whole sense of that first point for me was always really important, and now I'm like, cool, can I just check your temperature before I allow you in? It's so...
How did your customers respond?
So fine. I mean, we weren't super busy last night, but it was they're like, it's so fun. It's happening everywhere. Don't worry about it. But
yeah, because if you had customers, you know, jumping up and hugging one another and doing stuff that's made you uncomfortable.
Yeah. And even, you know, I am a very, like, exactly that. Give me a warm welcome and make it feel like my home. Like, that's the way I am as a person. And, like, people are still trying to do it to me, and it's very, no, please.
What do you do? How do you respond?
Well, I kind of take a step back, and they're like, oh, are we doing it? I'm like, no, sorry, not at the moment.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I feel like I'm obsessively watching the news and looking for the updates, and, you know, I feel like I've got 4 square meters just embedded into me. You know, I sense it now. And 1.5 meters, you know, I could step that out with my eyes closed. But I guess when you're not in it and living it and thinking about it all the time, I mean, a lot of people aren't as conscious or as aware, or they certainly haven't been. I mean, I wonder if that's going to change with this second lockdown, and whether people are going to, you know, for the most part, take it more seriously.
It's so hard for me to understand how people could miss this. Like, I really, really struggle with it. But, and I mean, it's happening everywhere. Like, even, you know, not that I want to name somewhere, but like we went to get something for the first time, and I'm like, this is not socially distancing, to the point where my partner was like, it's like, I don't feel uncomfortable in here, let's go. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, let's go. But it's just like, I don't understand how people don't know by now. And like, particularly in these suburbs, like there's police everywhere. Like there's drones flying around looking at street activity. Like it's crazy. Like you drive through Brunswick West and there's drones flying over.
Wow.
Like checking out the streets. Like it's so surreal. Like, and it's dead. Like Sydney Road, I would be like, avoid Sydney Road at all costs. Like it's the worst traffic ever, and it's easy to drive up and down.
Right. You mean you're saying it's really quiet right now?
Oh, super quiet. Yeah.
I was chatting to some folks in Sydney during the weekend. You know, not that I feel like Melbourne needs to be the canary in the coal mine, but maybe other states who feel like they are past it could look at what's happening here not as a pariah state, but as a bit of a warning of how quickly things can get out of hand. I mean, I heard the health minister saying that most of the cases in the north and western suburbs could possibly be tracked back to one super spreader. And you just think this thing can get out of hand so quickly.
Well, I think that's the thing that scares me, Dani, like that of letting people through our doors, like, is just how. And I'm like, it's almost like, I don't know if we've become a little bit, you know, like, oblivious isn't the right word, but if we've just we've been hearing the same message over and over again, that we're just like, oh, okay, cool, it's like coronavirus, it's infectious and whatever, because it's this world that we're living in, this new kind of normal that we're living in. But at the same time, like, it is this exact kind of spike and outbreak is like, it is so infectious that, like, no matter, like, we've gone through a 12-week lockdown or 10-week lockdown or whatever it was, and you let someone in who might be asymptomatic, and how many people that feed onto someone, no matter what you do. Like, you can clean as much as you want or whatever, and yes, it's a droplet-based virus, so you've got to be in close proximity. But my business is asking people to stay in relatively close proximity, yes, socially distanced, but that I want you to sit down and have a good time. So it is really...
It's really tough.
It's really kind of, yeah.
How worried are you about the reputational damage that might come from an outbreak that's associated with your restaurant?
Well, it's definitely there. It's definitely there. Like, you don't want to be the place where someone has come and it's known as, like, as I said to you yesterday when we were chatting, like, you don't want to be known as the Cedar Meatworks outbreak, do you? No matter what you do. And, like, I mean, to be honest, I don't know too much about it, other than the fact that I think it was like over 100 people were infected from there, and you don't know what their hygiene protocols are or whatever, but it's a food business, so you would think it was pretty high. And all I can say is, like, there is honestly, I do not know what else we can do more in terms of cleaning and sanitation and distancing than we do right now, and keep the doors open.
How are your hands?
They hurt. They really, like, seriously, you should see around my nails. They are so sore. But, I mean, you've got to do it because it's responsible, you know. And you want to you want people to feel comfortable coming here. And, everybody, the majority of people do. And probably the most people who have felt uncomfortable are our regular customers who have come in and they're not going out, but they're like, I'm coming here because I know that you're taking this seriously and I want to support you, which is like, oh, yeah, like, nearly makes me cry. But it's how do you need to make people feel comfortable in coming out. And, I mean, the other side of it is, how do you stop people from coming in and hugging their friends in the middle of a very spacious dining room? And you're like, oh my God, okay, cool. Well, that's, like, it's more the other people. How does that look to the other people? Like, I can't control other people's actions.
Yeah, for sure. So who have you got around you that's, helping to bulletproof your business?
Well, I am very lucky that I have an incredibly supportive family. But also, I mean, the team here, we're a pretty open bunch, and I'm really lucky. I don't know if I'm pretty sure you would know her, Amber McCabe. I brought her on as a consultant to the business prior to lockdown and everything, and she is kind of my little sidekick at the moment and my constant sounding board. And, like, what would you do? She used to own the Town Mouse with her brother and husband, and I mean, she's been in the position I'm in, not in Corona times, but I'm like, what would you do? And having someone to kind of talk it through with, but then at the same time, like, on the other hand, I've got my dad and my uncle who have been in business for 35 years and kind of seen it all, from the recession that everyone had to have in the 80s and 90s, and, to them kind of coming out the other side and wrapping things up at the moment. And they're like, how do we make sure that, you get through this? So I have a pretty awesome support network around me of people to kind of bounce my thoughts off. And when I'm having those moments of, like, what, and, like, literally exactly that, I've just walked out of a meeting of, like, okay, cool, so we'll wait it out this week and see what's happening in terms of the virus, and then we'll make a decision next week with how we'll proceed if cases are spiking and things like that, from what we'll do from more responsible side of do we open the doors or not.
So you could, I guess, once again go ahead of the government edict if indeed your suburb is locked down as well.
Yeah, which is what we did last time. I mean, we made the decision at 11 o'clock in the morning as a group that we're going to close. That will be our last service. And then I think, what time was it, like 4 or 5, they announced lockdowns were happening. So we're kind of, it feels like that again. I guess the only thing it doesn't, that's not quite as stressful is that, oh my God, will we ever be able to reopen the doors again? Now it's just making sure that we're preserving what we have so that we can come out the other side of it as well.
What does the other side look like? Like, what can you imagine being there? And when is that going to happen?
Like, I wish you could look into a crystal ball and tell me, because I would really like to know. But I mean, I think it all comes down to, like, really the hard times coming are going to be 6, 9, 12 months from now, because I think this is our new, like, social distancing is our new norm until we have something that, like, we have a vaccine or something. I don't see how this industry can return to any kind of form of normal until that happens. And so, like, really, you've got to, like, I can have a third of people in this restaurant of what we would normally have as capacity because we're so little. And numbers, it's really funny because our numbers are higher than what we can physically fit in here because of having 1.5 metres between chair to chair. So, yes, our numbers say we can do something, but we physically can't fit that many people in because of the actual space itself. So,
right. So, in terms of density, you could fit more in, but because of the distancing, it's like the equation changes.
100%. 100%. So, yeah, like, it's just how do you make those numbers work? And that's, I think, the bottom line. Like, you've got to come at it. And, like, for me, I'm a fairly emotional human being, and everything I've done is more because of feeling. Like, I haven't created a business on, well, I mean, there is a bottom line, of course, for a business at the end of the day, but it's about, how do we make people feel when they come into the space? And so it's teetering on that really fine line of, okay, cool, well, we've got to be realistic about what we can achieve in this space with these figures in that time. And I mean, that's kind of more down the road, I think, right now. Like, this immediate kind of feeling that I'm feeling at the moment is like, okay, cool, well, we're just going back into that. Everyone's cancelling, no one's feeling safe about coming out, and that really unstable environment. And so what do we do during this time? Because it's like preserving what we have for the other side of this round of spike.
So, Hannah, I mean, we're very much in the thick of it now, but how far ahead does your horizon go, and what do you see on the other side of this?
Well, I just think, I mean, immediately it's just making sure that we secure, like, the business to survive this peak of cases that we're having. But then in the long term, it's like, how do you make the numbers stack up, and what do you need to do to make it work? Because I don't see this industry returning to any form of normal until there's something like a vaccine in place where, we can start to be around one another in confined small spaces. That's, I mean, it sucks to say, but we're an industry built on been in a space for a period of time, be it long or short, and mine kind of is, you know, the 2 to 3 hour kind of window, and having a good time and clinking glasses and sharing plates of food and everything really that you're not supposed to be doing at the moment.
It's pretty bad. I mean, do you just feel terrible and sad, or are you just in a doing mode?
That is a really great question, particularly today. I feel like I'm having a bit of a bad day today. So it is one of the days where I am feeling a little bit hopeless, and just pretty exhausted. But overall, I would say I'm pretty energized to like make sure that we do come out the other side of it. And I think it is like allowing yourself to have those days where you do feel a little bit hopeless and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing all of this for? Like, why am I putting myself through this? But then I have someone come in, like last night, he came on our first night, came again last night. He's like, I'm coming in every night, every week until like you can reopen to normal because, you know, I don't want to see you close. And it was like, I really needed it yesterday. And I kind of shed a little tear and was like, thank you. That means more than you know. And they're the kind of things that give you energy to kind of keep going. And then at the same time, it's like, you're still trying to be creative, and being creative in a time where you are feeling kind of with your back up against the wall is pretty tough. But then you'll have like a little thing and like, oh, I tried this today, you should try it, like from Charlie in the kitchen. And I'm like, oh yeah, delish. And it's like, oh, great, it's kind of a little bit normal. Like, you know, you savor those little things of what normal life look like instead of the big like, oh God, what is it going to look like on the other side, and trying to plan for that and like sitting down, like looking at numbers and this is what we need to do this, and this is what we need to do this. And
maybe you've discovered the zen of coronavirus, which is just being in the moment and taking those small pleasures.
Is it bad to say that I'm probably drinking a little bit more than I would normally? But I think it is having those, like being able to have those conversations, because who knows, we could go back into lockdown and you don't get to have those people like saying, hey, you're more than just a restaurant, you're a part of a community. Like, we love you and we want you here. Like, when you're sitting at home locked up and not having that kind of contact, they're the reason we do what we do. Like anyone in hospitality, like we are an industry of people that give other people a good time, and like that's what we take satisfaction in. That's definitely what I feel energized by, is when you walk through a busy dining room and you see everyone having a good time, and it's almost like the best nights are those nights on the knife edge where like you're so busy and you're like, oh, I'm almost going down, but we got out the other side as a team. Like having those little moments are the things that kind of keep you going.
I reckon that's one of the cruelest things about what's going on, is that the pandemic rips away those opportunities for hospitality people to give and to show that generosity and to create those moments for other people. It's like that those moments really fuel you, don't they?
Well, I mean, like they definitely do, but I think you still look around and see like this is an industry that is the hardest hit. And I mean, like, look at what you and Ben are doing at Attica with the soup project. Like there are so, like, you know, Katie at Congress is doing Open Kitchen. Like, even though everyone is on the edge of basically failure or they're struggling to survive, to see a light through this tunnel, like they're still giving. It's actually phenomenal to see the amazingness that has come out of such a crap situation, but also like a true essence of what this industry is about at the same time.
Yeah, that's at the same time as everything is so destabilizing, there are also so many things that are affirming. And I think it's hopefully it really helps to get you through whatever's coming, to know that and to see it and to be part of it as well. Hannah, what was that delicious thing that Charlie put across the pass for you to taste? And what dish does it go with?
So it was like, it looked like a bowl of chickpeas, and I was like, oh, great. But honestly, this bowl of chickpeas was the best thing I've ever eaten. Like, I don't know. He cooked it in like a lamb stock with some lamb belly and then cavallonero and some preserved lemon that he's been preserving for a while. And it was just so unassuming that I gobbled it up for my breakfast. It was probably not the healthiest thing. There's an amount of butter in it, but it was just that whole thing of like, oh, he's taken a simple chickpea and made this incredibly like mouth salivating dish, and it just looked like a bowl of chickpeas, but it was so good. It's like, oh yeah.
I think chickpeas are pretty magical, and there's so much that you can do with them, and I actually reckon like they are almost the perfect food. So I hear you, and now I want chickpeas cooked in lamb broth, so I might have to make that or come down for it.
Yeah.
But Hannah, thank you so much for chatting to me on a hard day, and it's a hard week. It's a pretty crappy week for Melbourne, but thank you for putting your good energy out into our city and bringing beautiful food and hospitality experiences to us all. I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Dani. Thank you.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.